Okay, as we move on, I'd like to take this time now to ask Mr. Rainey Langerman, presenter, and Mr. Thomas D. Miller, class of '82, who to please come forward and be introduced into the Hall of Fame.
Thank you, and I want to congratulate all the other inductees this evening. This is a special induction for me because Tommy Miller was, and without exaggeration, and I've coached a long time, was one of the finest young men to have the title of captain, co-captain. He worried more about his fellow teammates than he did himself. In fact, on Thanksgiving of his senior year, Coach Dable and I wrote some notes to the individual seniors about what they had to do to win the ball game. And specifically the note to Tommy was, think about yourself today. You've worried about your teammates all year. This is going to be your day. Well, not only was it his day, but we had potentially been labeled the underdogs by 2 or 3 touchdowns. Primarily because in his junior year, they upset Southbridge in Webster. And Coach from Southbridge indicated that Jim Healy's shadow tackled the Southbridge running back, who was all by himself going around the corner, and he was going to be the winning touchdown. And the kid stumbled and fell, and he said that was Healy's tackle of the day. So and now we're going to get back to reality, because Bartlett had been beaten 9 straight years. Well, it didn't turn out that way for Southbridge. Because of a great effort by all of the Bartlett High School players, but especially the co-captain, Tommy, who threw for 160 yards, who intercepted a pass late in the game that was going to be the deciding factor, because we were ahead until Southbridge in the second half came back, and it looked like we were going to have a problem. But that interception locked the winning score not to be changed, because Tommy was there to help out. You know, and it was funny, I was writing a few notes to myself that he worried in the newspaper. They interviewed him after he had received the Sabbath Nelly Award for the 2nd year in a row, which was only done by very few people. But he mentioned all of the kids, all of his linemen, and gave them credit for the win. And I remember seeing that names that I hadn't seen in a long time, Mark Mason and Steve Morrow and Dave Zilterio and Robbie Green, and Sylvester. Nobody knew who those people were prior to this game. But when he was interviewed by the press, this is who he gave credit to for that win. And that's Tommy Miller, and I'm very proud to introduce him and welcome him to the Bartlett High School Hall of Fame. Tommy?
You know, I heard about this induction many months ago, and I've been thinking about it ever since. What to say, who to talk about, what to talk about. And it comes down to people. God has put many people in my life to put me in a place where good things happen. Coach talks about those teammates that I mentioned. It's all true. When you talk about the people you want to invite to the ceremony, there's a list that could be a mile long that you want to invite. Fortunately for me, without having to invite many of them, they're all here. I can look around this room and make a speech just by looking at tables. Coach Kioski, thank you for that call. And inductee Sean Heather didn't play a day, but more vital to what we did as a group and as a team than many people. Didn't have to. He was at every practice, every sport. Did unbelievable things for our school. I know you can't tell it today by my haircut, but there was a time when you got a mohawk that it meant something. And I had one of those. The school itself stands for a lot. Coach Christian getting up here and saying the Lord's Prayer for us, and using God's name in a meeting like this where it's not done in today's world, in this society, in an educational setting where those educators are here. You don't see that anymore. It's looked down upon, and I thank you for that. The people themselves, there's people that we'll talk about tonight real shortly, but there are people that can't be here tonight, and I wish they were. My mom being the first. Being able to be up here doesn't happen by yourself. My mom never missed a game. She taught me lessons that would bring me to who I was as a player and as a person. I wasn't always the nicest guy. I got in trouble a few times, got grounded a few times, but there was one thing I had to do, was that was show up to practice. And you might be in your room, but you're going to practice. And she made sure that was the case. She taught me those values that if you started something, you finished it. And I thank her for that. My Auntie Reed, one of the most special ladies I've ever known. She is very dear to my heart. We played a game one year in Millbury, my junior year, just after Coach Healy died. And it was raining. They almost called off the game when we got there. There was about 6 inches of water on the field. And Coach Daigle called a play and he said, listen, you're gonna call this play, but you're not telling anybody. You're not giving Summers the ball. You're just gonna scoop around the side and run down the sidelines, and you're gonna score. His language was much different than mine was just then. And I did so. And if you know my mom and my aunt, they weren't the most athletic people in the world. But Auntie Reed ran down the sidelines step by step, yelling at me, go Tom, go Tom, go Tom. That's just the kind of person she was. The reason I played football has to do with my cousin Z. He's the only reason I played football. Rita took me to see him play at Central Connecticut when I was very young, 8 or 9 years old. She told me, stories about Z with black and blue arms, and that you had to be a tough guy in order to play football. That only tough guys play football. And I wanted to be one of those guys. And I decided then that I wanted to play football. And it's because of him that that's the case. He's been an influence in my life since I was very young. He has. We grew up without my dad around. So when my mom needed some discipline in the house, she called Zeke. And if you've seen him, you know him, as many of you do, you don't mess with Zeke. Hawk, thank you. I must have been 30 years old before I realized your name was Ted Atlas. At some point, they're good friends, and at some point we started a tradition many years ago of playing 2-on-2 football. My brother and I against Z and Hawk. What I can tell you mostly is that they can talk trash like nobody else ever did. The other part of that is that we never beat them, never once. but they still talk trash. You know, the rest of it comes down to teammates and what it's about. Who I am today really is about the teammates and the people I played with. I always thought it was about teammates. You can't play football and do it by yourself. It's impossible. It requires everybody doing what they do. Coach Mrazek is a defensive coach. You know, we talked to you about being disciplined and being in position and understanding what's going on around you. It would be evident if you ever heard him on the football field. It's no, 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 you're supposed to be over here. Read your reads, get it done. Coach Springer, at the same time, was a gentleman that he taught you never to half-ass it. You couldn't do half-ass. When the sprints were at the end of the month, end of the night, and you're having to do sprints, you could hear Coach Springer yelling, "Come on, you dang donkey, get going." There's friends and teammates that you listen to all the time, that keep you humble. Jimmy Poglocky would always keep you humble. You know, you hear the word quarterback and it sounds okay. It's a guy that's supposed to be the leader of the team. When Jimmy says it, it's not the same, because it's quarterback. And he says it to me all the time to this day. The other people I would have to talk about has to do with my coaches and the people that meant most to me. Coach Langevin, probably the most brilliant coach I've ever met. Only say that because he allowed me to finally play defense and hit somebody. And the greatest compliment I could give Coach Langevin is this, is that I wish I had spent many more years playing for him. It was an honor, and I love playing for him. He brought a different aspect of football than I ever knew. I played for a gentleman named Coach Healy. He lost in my junior year in high school. Although I only played for him for a year and a half. I started Bartlett High School in the 8th grade, before I was a junior, senior high school, in the old Digger Street High School, playing in the basketball in the swimming pool. And we talked about football a lot of times, a lot. And I'm going to use a phrase that my daughters are going to cringe a little bit because they've heard it all their life. He taught me about intestinal fortitude. That it's not what you do when people are watching you. It's what you do when nobody's watching. I miss it. Jim Healy brought a team together when he wasn't even there. We had lost 10 years in a row to Southbridge. And Mingo was right to hate because we won. It was 14-8. I'm sorry about the tears, but as the people that really know me know, I'm a passionate guy, and I do everything with passion. And Jim Healy brought that up. I've taught my daughters about intestinal fortitude since the day they were born. I'll end up tonight with a man that I think they talked about tonight. That you have a card on your table somewhere about somebody that should be inducted into the Hall of Fame. You should all take it out and put the name on the date on it. There's a coach, a mentor, and a friend. As I said earlier, my dad wasn't around when I was younger. Bobby Daigle was the single most influential man in my life. We built a relationship from Pop Warner. I started when I was 10 years old. Coach, you and Bobby tried to get me to quit Pop Warner. Put me up against Jamie Hudman, Jimmy Peter, Paul Kiosky, Jan Kiosky, Vinny Grinsevich. I weighed 68 pounds, by the way, and they weighed 140. And he had them beat the living crap out of me at a football field to get me to quit. And this man picked me up off my feet in front of me and said, if you had half the heart, you'd be champions. I didn't want to quit. I played football still. Bobby made sure that I learned what I was supposed to learn and be the man I was supposed to be because he gave me direction. We were allowed to go to his house in the summertime and lift weights because I couldn't get into a gym, or there weren't really gyms back then, but he let us go into the gym. We had simple rules: clean up after yourself, respect my wife and family, and show up every day. He once told me to, in order to be a good quarterback, you have to have, the ball has to feel like it's part of your hand. So me being me, in a little extreme, for the next several months, I took the football and put it in a throwing hand, but how I wanted it, and I ace bandaged it to my hand. And that sounds great, except the fact that I slept with it that way, every night, to make sure that that was the case. I thank all of you. I respect all of you for all the inductees for what they've done. You're great athletes and great people. I'm honored to be here tonight. I am so privileged that I could be part of this. I just wish it was a group effort, because it doesn't take one person, it takes many people. God bless you, and thank you, and have a great evening.